She left without slamming the door, just slipped out of his life under the pretense of a night with friends, wearing the perfume that once made him forget how to breathe. He knew she wasn't going to the right place or the right people. But he stayed silent. Just as he had all those months when the phone rang at odd hours and her laughter sounded too unfamiliar. She thought he was still playing his role, reliable, convenient, invisible. But where there used to be a shadow, there now stood a man. And he wasn't planning revenge. He was planning to vanish from her life as effortlessly as she had vanished from his evenings. No shouting, no scenes, no explanations. While she wandered through the maze of flirtation and lies, he was collecting evidence. While she played at freedom, he was learning to breathe again. And when she finally returned, confused with broken eyes and a question in her voice, it was already too late. "Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watched this video. I value every one of your comments. So let's get started." It was never really about the gathering. It never is. Not when your wife brushes past you like you're just part of the furniture, draped in a dress that whispers fate, not friendship. Not when she picks a perfume she hasn't touched since your first night together, the one that once made you forget how to breathe. Not when a harmless question, "Who's going to be there?" makes her hesitate, like the truth is a foreign language she hasn't practiced in years. That Thursday night, I wasn't watching Anya head to a social outing. I was witnessing a quiet goodbye, silent, clean, but soul-piercing. "It's just a casual night with the group," she said, barely looking at me, her fingers twirling her hair while her eyes stayed locked on the mirror in her phone. "Jasper gonna be there?" I asked. I saw it land, barely a wince, a caught breath, a flicker behind the eyes. She recovered fast, but I'd spent 6 years mapping the fault lines of her deceit. "He's part of the usual crew," she mumbled. And that was it. I knew. She wasn't going to reconnect with old friends. She was going to him. The one she promised was ancient history. The ghost she swore she buried long ago. She left at exactly 7:41 p.m. No kiss. No parting words. Not even a glance. Just the echo of her heels tapping away, each step like a drumbeat marking the end of us. As her car disappeared down the street, I stood at the window, fork in hand, untouched dinner growing cold beside me. She assumed I'd wait. That I'd shrink into the couch, pretend to scroll my phone, and quietly ache. That I'd keep being the loyal fool. But that version of me had already been dismantled. It vanished with her distant chuckles over late-night work calls. With every gym visit that left her the same, except for new lingerie tucked into drawers she thought I never opened. I noticed everything. I just wasn't ready to face it. But tonight? I didn't need proof. I had resolve. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't try to stop her. Didn't even dial her number. I stepped into the shower, let the water rinse away the last of the man who tolerated it all. Then I reached for the old leather jacket, the one I shelved when I traded edge for predictability. 20 minutes later, I walked into the Blackstone Lounge. The air was thick with alcohol, regret, and possibility. I didn't come to chase a rebound. I came to reclaim something I'd lost. Myself. Behind the bar, Sierra did a double take. "Travis Hale? No way." I gave her a lopsided grin. "You still pour a proper old-fashioned?" I asked. She didn't say a word, just handed me the glass. The ice cracked like a firework. But we both knew this wasn't about the drink. 30 minutes passed. My phone lit up. "Where are you?" "Anya." I didn't answer. She didn't get to juggle anymore. Not the past and the present, not Jasper and me. She made her choice. Let her live in it. Let her experience the silence she used to punish me with. The irony? She texted me less than an hour after walking out. Faster than I expected. Maybe Jasper's spark didn't survive the real world. Maybe the fantasy collapsed under fluorescent lights. Or maybe, just maybe, she finally realized something had shifted. That I'd stopped playing the part of her emotional doormat. I left her message unread. Sierra looked up, one eyebrow raised. "Everything okay?" "Just an old story trying to make a comeback," I said, taking another sip. But the truth was, I'd already started writing a new one. Because while she was weighing comfort against chaos, I was already dismantling the myth we called marriage. I was done being the backup option. At 9:12 p.m., another message buzzed through. Are you home? Home. It used to mean lazy Sunday mornings and laughter echoing off the walls. Now, it was just her escape route. I typed one word, busy. She didn't respond. That was fine. Let the silence wrap around her the way it wrapped around me all those nights, tight and suffocating. The kind of silence that makes you stare at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering if the person beside you already moved on in their heart. You good? Sierra asked gently, leaning closer. Getting there, I said. And I meant it. I wasn't whole, not yet. But I could see the edge of something better. The man I was before I became her shadow. I emptied the glass, left a generous tip, and stepped into the night. The cold met me like an old friend, not bitter, just bracing enough to remind me I was awake. I drove aimlessly, filled the gas tank even though it didn't need it, sat in the parking lot of a diner with no intention of eating, just sitting, wasting time, for once, for myself. As I eased the car into the driveway, my phone buzzed again. Another message. Are you ignoring me? A faint smile played on my lips. Not ignoring, just tied up, I typed back. Her reply came instantly, too fast to be considered. Tied up with what? It wasn't loud, not angry. It cut clean and quiet, like velvet hiding a knife. Now her mind was spinning, filling in blanks. Was I with someone else? Had I finally stopped being the safe, predictable fallback? I didn't reply. I set the phone face down on the nightstand, turned off the lamp, and let the silence stretch between us for once. At exactly 2:41 a.m., I heard the front door creak open. I stayed still. Soft, cautious steps tapped across the floor. She hesitated outside the bedroom, then gently touched the door. Not knocking, just her nails lightly grazing the wood. Travis? Her voice barely rose above a whisper. I said nothing. The door crept open. Moonlight washed over her face, mascara streaked, lips chewed, hair a tangled mess. She looked like someone who had wandered too far and suddenly realized they were lost. I just got back, she murmured. Can we talk? I pushed myself upright, slowly. No yelling, no theatrics, just a composed stillness she didn't expect. I'm busy, I said evenly. Her brow furrowed in disbelief. It's almost 3 a.m, she said. I tilted my head. Exactly. She took a few more steps into the room, arms wrapped around herself like armor. Why are you acting like this? I locked eyes with her. Acting like what? Like you don't care anymore. And there it was, the line she never thought she'd need. I got up, walked past her, poured a glass of water in the kitchen, and leaned on the counter. She trailed behind, lingering in the doorway like she didn't know if she was allowed in. Travis, please. Just say something. Finally, I turned toward her, calm, unshaken. You left first, Anya. Not tonight. Slowly, over time. With silence. With distance. With every touch you withheld. You didn't leave all at once. You disappeared piece by piece. You just didn't think I'd ever follow. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. You told me it was just a party, I continued. But that's not what you were after, was it? She flinched. Nothing happened. I never asked. What? She breathed. I stepped closer. You think I need concrete evidence to confirm what I've already known? That you've been gone in every way that matters? That your heart found someone else long before tonight? She tried again, to rationalize, to soften the edges, to frame it as something less ugly. But I raised a hand. I don't need it, I said, quietly, but with finality. I don't need anything from you anymore. Then I walked past her. She said my name, faintly, like a ghost trying to be remembered. But I didn't stop. Not this time. This time, I was the one walking away. By the time the morning light spilled into the room, I'd already received 4 messages. Not one of them was an apology. Not one owned a single fault. Just the same old song dressed in concern. Are you okay? We should talk. Please respond. This isn't like you, Travis. But she was wrong. This was me. The version she once said she wanted. The man with a backbone. The man who wouldn't settle for crumbs and call it love. Except now, She didn't want this man, because he no longer revolved around her. She thought I'd keep bending, keep burning just to keep us warm. She never imagined I'd stop lighting the fire. I left before she even opened her eyes. No goodbye note, no explanation, no guilt. I drove straight to a gym she didn't know existed and picked up the weights again. Every rep pulled me back to myself. Every drop of sweat scrubbed away the nights I spent begging for scraps of affection, for validation, for a kind of love that didn't come with terms and conditions. When I returned, she was pacing the kitchen in the same dress from the night before, looking like she didn't know how to exist in this version of our life. The second I walked in, she turned. Mascara still marked her cheeks. Her hair was thrown into a careless bun, trying to look unbothered. "You left?" she asked, the edge of accusation tangled in her voice. "I did. You didn't say a word." "I assumed you wouldn't notice," I said, tossing my keys onto the counter. She stepped forward. "Don't do this." "Do what?" I asked. "Give you a mirror?" She opened her mouth, then shut it again. I stepped in close, lowered my voice. "You came home at almost 3 in the morning, reeking of his cologne. And now you're upset?" She inhaled sharply. Not because I was wrong, but because she didn't think I'd see it. She still believed I was the man who'd look away, even as the truth stood inches from his face. But that man? He's not here anymore. She treated me like her emotional insurance, reliable, quiet, always in the background, easy to tuck behind forced smiles and casual betrayals. I turned my back and headed for the bedroom. "Travis, please." I didn't sleep with him. I stopped mid-stride, my back still turned. That sentence told me everything I needed. Everything else had already happened, just not that. A cold smirk played on my lips. "That's not honesty, Anya. That's damage control." She collapsed into a dining chair like the wind had been knocked out of her. "It was just talking," she muttered. "I don't care," I said, cutting her off before she could say more. "I'm not interested in the details." "What's happening to you?" she murmured. I didn't even glance at her. "You're watching your own lessons in action," I replied. Over the following days, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I simply detached, and that, more than anything, unhinged her. Anya was skilled in conflict. She could weep at will. She had used seduction before to shift the tide, but apathy? She had no weapon for that. I quit asking about her plans. I no longer reacted to her late-night showers, the unfamiliar lingerie tags, or the freshly shaved legs she saved for coffee meetups with friends. She began to come undone, because if I wasn't chasing, she had nothing to run from. Then something shifted. I slipped off my wedding band, started stepping outside, to the gym, dinners, places where I didn't hide, where women noticed me, not because I was trying, just because I existed differently now. One woman stood out, Elena, a civil engineer I met at a conference I nearly skipped, intelligent, poised, observant. She laughed with her entire expression and spoke with no apologies. We had long conversations, never crossed a line. But Anya noticed the shift. Of course she did. That evening, I walked in to find her waiting at the kitchen table. A full glass of wine sat untouched. She stared at the front door like it might speak. "You smell like citrus and vanilla," she said quietly, not lifting her head. I dropped my keys onto the counter. "Soap," I replied. She slowly turned toward me. "Did you see someone tonight?" I raised an eyebrow. Would the answer change anything? Her lips trembled, and that's when it finally landed for her. That hollow swirl in her stomach, fear, guilt, and dread all tangled together. That was just the opening course. The main dish was coming, and I'd already set the table. Every fiber she'd stitched into our shared life, I was about to dismantle, and she'd have front-row seats. While she scrambled to resurrect a version of our marriage she thought could be salvaged, I was quietly building something else, a reckoning. There were no tantrums, no shattered plates, only precision. I compiled evidence, bank statements, itinerary logs, card charges, names, dates, inconsistencies. I followed every girls' night that had no selfies, every suspicious dinner bill too high for one, every odd ATM pull from cities she swore she'd never been to. I wasn't waiting on a confession anymore. I had the truth, and with it, the power, not for revenge, for release. a release untouched by guilt or the need to seem noble. This time, I was leaving from a position of strength. 3 weeks passed. Anya was unraveling. She began making efforts again, cooking dinner, spritzing on the perfume I used to adore, rewatching our old favorite movies. Though now she kept to the far side of the couch. "Want to sit with me?" she asked one evening, patting the empty space beside her. I held her gaze for a long moment. "No." She blinked, stunned. "I've got plans." "What kind of plans?" she asked, playing it cool. "I'm meeting someone." Silence, then another beat. "Travis?" Her voice dropped. "Is there someone else?" I gave her a gentle smile. "Now you're beginning to understand." The next morning, she discovered the folder. I'd left it on the kitchen table, open, intentional. Inside, organized proof, screenshots, chronologies, every lie, color-coded and dated. I didn't confront her. Didn't stick around to see her face. But I heard the silence afterward. It was heavy, piercing, unmistakable. That night, she appeared in the hallway clutching the folder like it was radioactive. "I never meant to hurt you," she said, voice cracking. "You just didn't care if you did," I replied, brushing past her. "You don't understand, Travis. I felt invisible. You were always so dependable." I stopped, turned, looked her dead in the eyes. "And that made me boring?" She didn't reply. She didn't have to. What she didn't know was that I'd already retained an attorney. I secured my share, divided everything cleanly, declined spousal support. I didn't want to bankrupt her. I wanted her to sit with it. Sit with the realization of everything she had, devotion, consistency, someone who would have carried her through fire, and how she tossed it all away for flattery and ego strokes. I walked away from everything. The house with her name on the title, the furniture we once chose hand in hand, the rooms echoing with 1,000 shared moments. I didn't take a single thing but the version of myself she had tried to bury. A month later, I unpacked in a new apartment. It was humble, quiet. The floor creaked under my steps, and the faucet leaked without pause. But it belonged to me. And that meant everything, because the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like liberation. I started reading again, jogged through still streets before dawn, smiled at the occasional messages from Elena, the kind that made the day feel softer. She wasn't trying to fix me. She didn't need to. She simply saw me. Then one rainy evening, Anya appeared. No call, no warning. Just stood there outside my door, soaked through like a scene out of a film's final act. "Can we talk?" she asked. I met her gaze. Her hair clung to her face. Her hands were trembling, her voice uncertain. But I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel longing. I felt nothing at all. "What is it you want?" I asked her. She faltered, then murmured, "I miss you." I gave a slow nod. "Do you miss me?" I asked. "Or do you miss the version of your life I let you live when I didn't know better?" She didn't reply. She didn't need to. Her silence held the answer. I closed the door, gently, firmly. She didn't leave right away. 5 minutes passed. Long, dragging minutes. I stood behind the door, not pressed to it, not watching, just listening, to the scuff of her shoes, to the quiet sobs she tried to suppress, to the hope in her stillness, waiting for the door to open again. But I didn't. Not because I hated her, but because for the first time, I didn't need her anymore. And when I finally heard her steps fade into the distance, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. One of those deep exhales that only comes after years of silent suffocation, years of smiling through pain, of mistaking devotion for self-erasure, of believing love alone could mend what kept breaking. The next morning, sunlight crept into the apartment like a gentle revelation. No tension, no lies, no unfamiliar perfume clinging to the sheets. Just stillness. I made coffee slowly, deliberately, the way Anya used to mock, saying it took too long. Now, I relished the slowness, needed it. After a lifetime of reacting, I was finally learning to move with intention. I sat on the small balcony and watched the city stretch awake. Below me, people rushed off to work, couples bickered at curbsides, kids dragged backpacks across cracked sidewalks, and I simply watched. No obligations, no destination. Just me. A few days later, Anya texted. "I get it now," she wrote. "I'm sorry. I hope you can forgive me someday." I read it, and then I deleted it. Not out of spite, but because real forgiveness doesn't always need words. Sometimes, it's found in the quiet act of letting go, in no longer needing them to know you've moved on. Elena and I stayed in touch. We weren't a couple. Not yet. We had coffee, saw a concert. She came over and helped me hang shelves when I struggled with a screwdriver. She never asked about Anya. She didn't have to. That door was already shut. Once, she told me. Sometimes we give the most beautiful parts of ourselves to the wrong people. The key is not to lose those parts when they leave. That stuck with me, because for a long time I thought Anya had broken me. But the truth? She only exposed how much I had withered, how easily I'd made myself smaller for the sake of peace. But now I was stronger, not bitter, not cynical, just awake. Months passed, the seasons shifted, and then one day I ran into Anya again. Randomly, in the grocery store. She looked tired, dimmed, her eyes flicked toward me and back, but I walked up to her. "Hey," I said. She offered a faint smile that didn't quite meet her eyes. "Hi, how have you been?" "I'm good," I said. "And you?" She hesitated. "I'm okay. You look, well." "Thanks." A moment passed in silence. Then she asked, "Do you ever miss what we had?" I thought about it, not because I didn't know, but because I wanted to respond kindly. "I miss who I thought we were," I said, "but not who we actually were." She nodded, her jaw tightening just slightly. "I hope you're happy, Travis." "I am, and I'm fully here." No tears, no embrace. Just two people who once shared everything, now sharing only a brief encounter in front of frozen dinners. That night, I lit a candle, not for love, for release. I sat on the floor, taking it all in. This place was home, not because someone else made it one, but because I had, completely, honestly, with no masks, no pretense. I picked up an old photo, me before the compromises, before the betrayal, before I lost my voice. I set it on the shelf and whispered, "Welcome back," because the most powerful closure doesn't come with fireworks or drama. It arrives in silence, in serenity, in becoming the version of yourself they never imagined you'd grow into once they lost their grip. And that's who I was now, free. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.